Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name's Phil, and as usual, I've got with me Rohan. How you doing, mate?
Hey, good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. And today we are warm welcome to Miranda from the Open Home Foundation. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
This podcast is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu. For a small monthly fee, you'll unlock powerful features like secure, effortless access to your system from anywhere, your choice of voice assistants, offsite backups, and more, all configurable in the UI with no YAML needed. It also supports the development of Home Assistant, ESP Home, and other Open Home Foundation projects. Click the link in the description to learn more. We'd also like to give a shout out to our Patreon members, including our executive producers, Benny and Rob. You can help support the show and get early access to episodes, all in an ad-free feed. To support the show, check out homeassistant.fm and click Patreon in the menu. And if you can't do that, we'd appreciate a like, comment, or rating wherever you're listening or watching us today. It really helps us out. Miranda, someone that does help out the Open Home Foundation a lot is yourself. Thank you for coming on today. Who are you, and I guess what is your official title at the Open Home Foundation, and then we can unpack it from there.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me, firstly. I'm Miranda. I'm the Partnership Manager at the Open Home Foundation, and particularly at the flagship project, Home Assistant. My main responsibility is the Works with Home Assistant program, but I also deal with quite a lot of other different partnerships too.
So I'm guessing, anytime we see that, Works with Home Assistant badge somewhere, or I know we've had a few companies on this year on the podcast as well, from Air Gradient to Zeus, who are, works with Home Assistant partners, so thank you for reaching out to them as well for us.
It is literally Miranda's stamp of approval.
I mean, I think it's a lot more meaningful than like my personal stamp of approval, but sure. You can use that if you like.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's obviously an important role, and I do want to get into that. What's your journey with Home Assistant been? Have you been a user of Home Assistant, and then transitioned into like working for the Open Home, or how did you get here?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a cliche, unfortunately. But when we moved into our house, my husband set up Home Assistant. We had some smart home stuff already, kind of the normal entry level stuff that you would get, Ring cameras, a couple of smart plugs, things like that. And then when we bought our own home, my husband set it up. He is a lot more technical than I am. And he found it and put it in the house. And it was, something that I had to learn rather than like I went and found myself. But then over a couple of years, got used to it, started expanding it out more. And then I saw that the Open Home Foundation was looking for a partnership manager, which is my background. And it just felt like a really natural fit. So I've worked in partnerships for a number of years. I worked in kind of sales and marketing before that, and then partnerships for a kind of fintech firm. And this was I was kind of slightly looking around, and then I saw the job come up with the foundation. I was just like, that's the one. It was the only job I applied for, and I just kind of went all in on it. And the rest is history, as they say.
That's awesome. And you've been here, I guess, almost a year now. Because I remember when we first met, I think it was your first week at the Open Home Foundation at CES last year, or second week or something like that.
No, it was my first trip. So I'd been there since November. So it's just over a year now since I joined. But obviously the first 2 months were just like trying to find my feet and be like, okay, how do partnerships currently work? What's in the program right now? Trying to get my head around everything. And then we went to CES, saw you guys, and that was my first opportunity to really see some of our partners in real life, in person. And also then CES is like, it's like a baptism of fire, isn't it? You go into the smart home section and it's like, okay, wow. There's a lot to take in. So
It's funny because it's literally like there's lights flashing at you. There's like everything, right? And it's
it can be super overwhelming, actually. And like what I say now to everyone who's going is like, take your time. Like there's no way you're going to see all of it. Like you just try and take it bit by bit, go to the important things, bring lots of water, take lots of breaks, all that kind of stuff, because otherwise you're just by the end of the week, you'll be not able to string a sentence together, you know?
Yeah. As with most Vegas trips anyway. So it's
for different reasons, I think. Yeah.
Standard rules apply here. Yeah, it is. It's CES is a weird place, right? And it's like, because it's like you're going to the market, right? In whatever country, and people are like, hey, do you want a cucumber? And it's like, what? Right? And it's like same thing, right? Where some of the larger companies, obviously, like they don't need to pull you in or anything like that, but the smaller folks do, and it's hilarious, right? Sometimes, and it's fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to it again. But
I mean, it must be fun for you guys as well, because like I imagine you're walking around with mics and cameras and stuff, so they know that you're going to be creating content too. So it's like they zone in on you.
Just as soon as they saw our badge, like we'll be walking past a random vendor and they would see our badge that would have media written on it, and they'd be like, "Hey, like come over here, like look at our TV." I'm like, that's a nice TV, but it's not really what we want to talk about, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Whereas like we get stopped for different reasons, right? Because like, you know, we try and have Home Assistant branded t-shirts and stuff when we're walking around. And that was really interesting for me actually, because I hadn't been to something like that before, wearing anything Home Assistant branded, and you would get stopped being like, I love Home Assistant. My house does this and this and this, and this is how I've used it, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that's amazing. Like, cool. But it also happens outside of CES too. So we were in Dublin in the summer, and I was actually going back to the airport to leave, and some random guy just stopped me in the street being like, Home Assistant, like, how did you get that hoodie? And I was like, well, I work there. And he's like, oh my God. I was like, well, the whole team have been here, but like, sorry, we're all leaving now. Like, but glad you're a user, you know, like have fun with it. It's wild.
That's cool. It's like celebrity status almost, right? You're like walking around. It's like, can I get a picture?
I mean, walking around with Paulus, it's like that. It's like trying to be a bouncer for him, you know? Like,
or I. So
yeah. Yeah, so I have had quite a few people kind of come up and be like, could we get a picture with Paulus, please? Like, that would be amazing. And I'm like, let me ask him for you. You know?
I mean, I'm not his keeper, but sure, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
That's funny.
Just give me $5 and we'll make it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You start monetizing Paulus.
And we're a non-profit foundation, guys.
That's right. But Miranda's not non-profit. Moving on though, but you know, focused on the Open Home Foundation. Obviously, you were part of that whole, like when they were splitting it off into Nabukasa, Open Home Foundation, and so on and so forth. And then they decided that the Works With program belongs in the foundation, which to me makes sense. What was that whole process like for both yourself as an employee, but also as the, like with the Works With program?
Yeah, it was one of the first kind of projects I had to do really, is get hold of all of our current partners and say, hey, like your current contract is with Nabukasa, but the Works With program is moving across. So we had to redo all of the contracts. We had to reach out to all of the partners, explain why the contracts were changing. And then also the contracts themselves actually changed quite dramatically. They just got a lot more robust, to be honest, because we're a foundation and it's subject to lots of audit, really, really high kind of due process. We made sure that was a really good opportunity to just fill out that contract a bit more and make sure that it covered everything we really needed it to. So it's got, you know, super robust exit pieces. So like, you know, if you don't fulfill your commitment to the Works With program, if one of your devices changes, all that kind of stuff is written super clearly in the contract. And it's also about, like, you know, the use of logos and that kind of stuff is all super clear in that contract now too. Whereas before it was maybe a little more loose. So yeah, and it's also, it was important to move the program across to the foundation because it's not a commercial program. Like it comes up quite a lot in kind of community feedback or a lot of questions we get. It's like, well, aren't you guys just making money from this? It's like, no, because we're a nonprofit foundation, that's not the point of what we do. And it's really clear in the contract that the actual price for joining is basically just an administration fee. It's 500 Swiss francs. So not many people operate in Swiss francs. So
Yeah.
it's about 600 USD or like 550 euros or so.
Yeah.
I have a post-it note with all of the conversions like above my desk so that I know exactly what they are. And that's per partner per year, not per device. So that's the maximum we'd charge people is just 500 Swiss francs per year. So it's like, imagine how many partners we would need to make that actually profitable. And that's
assuming that you're making a profit off that 500 in the first place, right? Like the amount of hours you would spend, going through devices or back and forth.
It doesn't even cover testing. Like it wouldn't even cover testing of one device, one single device.
Well, in all honesty, if you break that down to an hourly charge, that's not even even for you to do your job to say, here's the contract, yes, no, and the amount of calls and all that stuff. That's not even enough to cover that, right? Like,
exactly.
That's not a livable wage by any means, right?
No.
And so that's it's I wonder, have you guys gotten any pushback from either the vendors or users being like, hey, this is actually like a racket, essentially, right? Like you guys are trying to game the system or whatever, like, and because to me that pricing doesn't seem like a whole lot to be able to put a logo on there to say, hey, this is actually, and we'll call it what it is, the works with programs of certification, but it's also an endorsement, right? So it's to me, when you're a commercial company, it's basically free.
We try not to kind of term it as an endorsement or like a recommendation, but it's more that we've followed a specific process for this device, right? We've tested it. We know that it has no kind of major issues going into Home Assistant. The manufacturer is committed to solving any issues if some come up, if bugs happen, if firmware updates are not kind of there and things like that. In terms of pushback, on the community side, sometimes people are like, oh, this feels like you're commercializing it too much. This feels like a marketing ploy. Sometimes we get that feedback. But then when because we really engage with those comments, is we go back and say, hey, actually, like if you look at the maths, you can clearly see that this is not a commercial program and this is why we do it in this way. From vendors, it's like a drop in the ocean, right? So I had a really funny interaction with a vendor the other day. We were at the Z-Wave Alliance summit, and they said to me, "Oh, we spoke to someone else before you joined the company." And they said, "Oh, it's 500," and we took that as $500,000. And we thought, oh, maybe it's a little bit steep, but we could probably swing it. So let's ask the higher ups. And I just couldn't believe it. But it just shows that like if we wanted to commercialize it, I'm sure we absolutely could, but that's not who we are, and that's not why we do it. So that really tickled me. I thought it was so funny. But yeah, occasionally we get like very small vendors coming in, and the price point is such that we really don't want to discourage small vendors coming in or startup companies either, because that's really important to us, because a lot of them come out of our community. It's someone who started a project as a hobby and just wanted to make something cool and local, and we don't want to discourage people out of that either. So we keep it deliberately low for that reason too.
Yeah, which completely makes sense, right? And I mean, it goes with the ethos of that whole DIYer, like maker kind of deal. And and it's interesting because we're talking kind of on the other side of stuff today, right? Rather than like, hey, here's how you use it, here's how you do whatever. But on the maker side of it, like, I mean, if I really wanted to, I could go out, build a device and say, hey, I think this fits the bill. Miranda, can you have a look? Am I okay? And you and your team, whatever, whoever that looks like. And great, you now have a works with logo you can use, right? After the 500 Swiss franc fee.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps them kind of develop too, right? Because, like, if we have a lot of projects who come to us and say, "Hey, I built this specifically for Home Assistant. Like, I knew this going in is that I wanted it to work with your system." And, we want to make sure that we're making space for those people because they're so important. So,
And
like,
you're
when I
setting
look
them up for
at
success too.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also like sometimes the other parameters of the program help them develop in different ways too. So maybe you get someone who's created like an ESP home type device. It started super DIY, and they want to commercialize it. But like when you join the program, you have to also have like certain safety features. Like you have to have FCC or CE certification based on where you are and what you're doing with the device. So sometimes that's a barrier for people too, but it's something that they would need long term if they want to think bigger, if they want to actually sell it to the general public and make it commercially available. That's something that they need to do anyway. So it gets them thinking about the general market more also and develop in
Yeah,
that way.
that's cool. So as part of this program, obviously you guys have guidelines and stuff like that saying, hey, this is, it has to be local, it has to whatever. Um, is there guidance? Is there some of those things that you guys provide along with that too, to say like, hey, cool, this is your project. Maybe we can give you a little suggestion here of like a gentle nudge or something.
Yeah, and that's what like a lot of my work this year has been like making sure that that stuff is documented for vendors so that it's easier for me to be like, hey, here's a specific set of guidance for like your protocol type or what type of connection you're having. Go and look through it. Make sure you can fit all of those requirements first, and then come back to me and we can start testing devices. Because like when I got here, I probably had like I don't know, like 5 or 6 testers who just had a room full of stuff that had been sent to them, and they like it. Like we had to buy an extra like storage cabinet for one of them because they just had so many devices that had been sent, but maybe they weren't really ready for testing yet because maybe firmware updates weren't available yet, or like certain things weren't ready. So it's kind of trying to put the responsibility onto the manufacturer first and say, hey, go and understand exactly the parameters of how Home Assistant works with this specific protocol. Understand that, take that knowledge to your internal team and learn it, and then come back to me when those things are met, and then we'll put you in for testing. So they're getting to know the system, they're getting to use it, and so it's funny because sometimes the engineers that I've been working with on the partner side, they've started putting it into their own homes, and they're like, "Oh, actually, I've just found this thing on Home Assistant, and I'm starting to do X, Y, and Z, and it's really cool." And that's really nice. That's really gratifying. So yeah, so putting all of that stuff in clear documentation is helpful, but it really depends on the connectivity type, right? So we have a few different ways people can join the program. They can use an open protocol or open standard like Zigbee, Z-Wave, Matter, or they can have like a full local integration that they've built, so Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or they can join through something like ESP Home. And there's kind of varying levels of I guess, resource needed for all of those. Like Z-Wave, for example, is actually quite an easy way to join the program because if you're already Z-Wave certified with that device, it should really work with Home Assistant regardless. So maybe there's a couple of things that aren't exposed in the proper way on Home Assistant, or we ask them to put firmware updates available on the Z-Wave JS library, and then that's pretty straightforward. But with Zigbee, for example, that's actually a lot harder to get ready for certification because most Zigbee devices in ZHA will need like a quirk or something unless they're super spec compliant, which no one is. Like Zigbee's like the Wild West in that way for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just, I'm really glad you're saying it because I've said it for years on this podcast about just, and don't get me wrong. I use both, right? I use Zigbee and I use Z-Wave, and as do a lot of people, right? But Zigbee is definitely the Wild West, like as you put it, right? There's a lot that can happen, and there's a lot that, it's up to the person how they want to implement it, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. Or like sometimes there's things that a device does that isn't covered by the spec yet. So like you see this a lot with Matter because it's quite a young spec still, it's still developing. So sometimes we'll get a device in, it's a really cool device, but like maybe one function that it has isn't actually available in Matter yet. So it's like, well, you know, if it's a kind of main function, then it's probably not ready to be certified from us yet. Like if it's not available within Home Assistant, then yeah, we kind of pass on it. But maybe it comes out in 6 months' time in the Matter spec and it's supported.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In terms of like some of the brands we've had, so we've got Reolink, I believe, is now works with Home Assistant, and Zeus as well. Have you seen interest from other bigger smart home brands like coming along and saying, "Hey, we're considering works with Home Assistant," um, or have you been surprised by those brands, at least those big brands at the moment?
Yeah. And I think the more partners we've added, the more interest it's been generating. I kind of maybe slightly naively thought that once I'd got through a bit of backlog as to people who were already in testing, that it would calm down a little bit and I could do more targeted kind of outreach. But actually, every time we do a launch, I get a flood of new emails come in say, hey, can we start looking at the badging and things like that. So like the most recent one was Al Taco, who are a German brand, very, very
Yep.
well established German brand. And I've had so many German companies come to us now and be like, "Hey, tell us about Works with Home Assistant."
Oh
And
wow.
like, it's really cool. It's awesome,
Yeah,
but it's a surprise, But because they're seeing someone else in the market who's so well known there, that they're like, oh, "Okay, we need this too," and maybe someone in their internal team uses Home Assistant as well, and it's sparked a conversation there too. So yeah, it's there's some really cool brands coming in, some very well-known brands who have reached out recently. I don't want to say too much about the people who are in testing because sometimes
sure.
they don't pass certification, right? So
Yep.
Yep.
it's hard to be like, hey, we're testing this brand, and then maybe they never get launched because maybe it doesn't work that well,
Yeah.
or maybe there's something really intrinsic that's missing. Um, but yeah, we've dealt with a lot of cool brands, and it's nice to go to places like CES as well, and kind of speak to brands that you would go to a hardware store or go to your local DIY shop and
Sure.
see on a shelf and think, yeah, that person's going to have the badge soon. Like that's really
Yeah.
gratifying. It's very cool.
Yeah, that's cool. But it's nice also because you get to see like you get to meet some of the people, especially at larger companies that you might not normally have access to, right? Like
Yeah.
I think like a Bosch or a Samsung or something like that. It's like you're not just gonna call like 1-800 Bosch and be like, hey, let me speak to your partnerships person, right? Like I mean you might
I mean, I
but
have been known to do that, but
which is
yeah,
fine, but it's
but yeah,
you
it's
get
it's
that
much
face to
easier
face.
in person. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of these people are there too, right? So you can be like, oh, hey, even if you go to the wrong person, they're like, hang on, let me go get the right
Yeah,
person, right? And
absolutely.
and that happens that
Yeah.
way. So it's
Yeah, like, we had a really interesting conversation with IKEA a couple of weeks ago, right? Because they attend one of the same events that we do. And they're super into Home Assistant. Like loads of their team actually use it and stuff, which is awesome. It's really, really cool. And we are able to kind of have good conversations and say, hey, actually, this thing isn't working that well on Home Assistant. Could you take a look at it? They don't actually partake in any Works with programs. So, like, I know that I'm probably never going to get a Works with badge in an IKEA store. C'est la vie, it is what it is. They don't really need to be part of anyone else's programs because they're IKEA, but it's still really good to have a good relationship with them. And, if I need anything or if we find that there's a bug with something that's being reported to us frequently, at least I have someone to go to and say, hey, could we work together on this thing and just make it better for our shared user base because we know that user base, it's important to them, right? So when probably 80% of my time is spent on the Works with program, but the other 20% is working with partners who maybe don't fit that program, but we need a good relationship with to be able to give them feedback and say, hey, this thing is broken. Let's fix it
Fix it.
together. Let's
Yeah.
try and find a way around whatever problem we're having.
Yeah.
And I do deal with a lot of people who have maybe cloud integrations too, or who want a cloud integration.
Right.
And that's fine. Obviously, they'd never be certified in the Works with program, but the Home Assistant is all about choice still. So if people want to be able to connect their cloud device to Home Assistant in a good way, we need to be able to facilitate that too.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's a good way of looking at it too, right? Because as much as, I mean, maybe the three of us on this call want to say, hey, we want everything local, we want whatever. Vendors sometimes are, they either out of choice or out of necessity, whatever it is, they won't be able to provide that, right? And at the end of the day, like, if there's one vendor that builds, I don't know, the best vacuum, right? And you're like, okay, well, I still want that. And they're like, well, sorry, no local for you. And you say, all right, well, I still want it in Home Assistant as much as it sucks that there's no local piece there, right? Bad example because there are good choices now, but
We had it with Genie a while back, right? So we have an active integration with Genie now. They do the Aladdin garage door openers, and
oh yeah,
we had been kind of going back and forth with them over the past few years, right? Because they originally had a cloud integration, I think, with us, but then it was closed for some reason, and we managed to reestablish that kind of communication and say, look, this is how it works, and this is how open source works. This is the license you'll need. Talk them through exactly the reasons behind that open source license so that they could take it to their legal team and say, hey, this thing is really important actually, and you need to let us use it. And then, that went really well. They've got a cloud integration launched with us now, and I'm sure a lot of people are using it. So it's benefiting everyone as a whole. It benefits them, it benefits us, and most importantly, it benefits our community who were missing it.
yeah, that's cool. So I'd love to talk a little bit about your home and what you do from a smart home perspective, right? I mean, you've obviously got a lot of access to a lot of stuff. But what does Miranda use at home, and what do you like what are some cool automations that you do and so on? I know you said initially your partner did a lot of the home automating and stuff like that, which is how you kind of got into it. Now, now that you work for the Open Home Foundations, have you taken the reins? Have you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of twofold, right? So he still kind of manages the main Home Assistant instance in our house. And what I tend to do is I will expand on that. If I've had something new in for testing, or if I've purchased something myself, then I will maybe add it in and we'll figure that out together. And it's quite a nice project for us to do as a couple as well, and be like, how should our home look, and things like that. But then separately, I also don't want to completely mess up our smart home if I've brought a device in for testing or something like that, and I don't know, it's not working well, and it ends up the home approval factor goes down on that way. So I tend to have like a little lab set up myself separately, where I can use some of the stuff just in my office and just try out different things and mess around with them. I'm not like our main tester. I tend to try and receive the items that I'm not sure of, and then we get a second item sent to one of the engineers, or like the subject matter expert in that, the device type or the connectivity type. But I like to have one here if I can, just so I understand it better, so that when we do a launch or something, I kind of get my head around the actual device. So I tend to keep those in my office and just set up kind of silly automations to make sure it's working, or make sure that the battery isn't just completely tanking after a week of use and stuff like that. And then later I might integrate it into our proper smart home and kind of do it properly there. But in terms of like how we actually use it on a day-to-day basis, so yeah, we originally started with like Ring cameras and just plugs and stuff like that. But now we've really expanded that out. focused on local for sure. So we have a bunch of rear link cameras here. We've replaced all of our Ring stuff just because most of them were so old that the battery level was rubbish and we didn't want to pay the subscription and things. So we use rear link a lot. We also have like a couple of automations set up for just, I don't know, taking good care of our house, right? So we have a problem with our boiler at the moment. I have a heating engineer coming out in a few days, but we've got this thing where if we turn on our hot tap, it actually, the heat exchange isn't working very well. So all of the radiators come on just because you run the hot tap. And it's like, well, that's annoying. So we have a home assistant automation now, which sends us a notification and says the boiler's stuck. You need to reset it so that we're not just constantly heating our home just because we've washed our hands. So things like that I found super helpful.
And just curious, how do you automate that? Like what devices are you using just for that particular automation?
We have some kind of thermostat on our boiler. So if it's above a certain range, but we haven't tried to trigger the heating, so it's working on if our house is like below the threshold of what we want from our central heating, or above that threshold already, but the heating is still kicking in, it's based on that logic, and then it will send a notification to our phones to be like, hey, your boiler's stuck, you need to reset it. We actually just also integrated it with our smart Christmas tree. So the Christmas tree is normally lit up in like a variety of colors, but it goes solid red if the boiler's stuck. So if we're not near our phone, we're like, oh, the boiler's stuck, and we can go reset it. So that was very cute. It's just a bit of fun.
I love that a lot of people use like blinking lights and stuff. You're like, no, we're just going to do a whole Christmas tree.
Whole Christmas tree.
Well, it's subtle, right? Because the Christmas tree is there anyway. So
yeah, exactly. And I really I love kind of silly little funny things with Home Assistant. Just makes me giggle. So, and I love hearing when like you have smart home fails. I think it's hysterical. I don't know why, but it just really tickles me. So like I had a vibration sensor in for testing, and I'm like, I don't really know what to use a vibration sensor for. So the only thing I could think of was putting it in our mailbox, because then I thought, well, the mail will come in, it'll set the vibration sensor off, and then it sends a notification to us, says you've got mail. Cool. But then we've got this big oak tree out the front of our house, and during autumn we had like 1 million acorns raining down, and it would just hit our mailbox on a constant basis and like constantly set it off. So stuff like that really makes me laugh. I just think it's funny. And when I get stuff in for testing, I set small things like that up to, I don't know, just try and make sure it's testing it for, I know it's still connected and everything else, but like I have one of the newer Cara sensors, so the little FP300. Yeah. I've had it for quite a while actually, because we had it in for testing a long time ago, but it sits on my desk, and if it's the work day, if I'm away from my desk for more than 15 minutes, it sends me a notification being like, get back to work. And then like afterwards, awesome. if it's outside of my working hours and I'm in my office, it's like, why are you at work? Go and like, eat dinner. So I like doing silly things like that, just for my own amusement.
Yeah.
But then we also have a lot of like energy management and things. That's more my husband's area, because that man loves to bleed a radiator. I've never known anyone who is so interested in radiators, but he takes control of that kind of stuff, and then I play around with the more fun things.
That's awesome.
Well, if you're looking to upgrade your smart home, you can't go past Zeus. Zeus have their brand new Z-Wave long-range siren and chime ZSC 5800LR. You can trigger audio and visual LED alarms based on smart sensors or other conditions, and the audio speaker plays your own files for personalized automation, or there's a selection in a preloaded library. Zeus are an official Works with Home Assistant partner, thanks Miranda, helping Nabucasa by providing long-range devices for testing the Home Assistant Connect ZWA2 radio. Zeus offer a range of affordable and innovative devices, including water leak sensors, water valve controllers, smart plugs, and scene controllers. Their Zen 78 high power relay allows you to control and monitor high load appliances up to 40 amps, which is perfect for pool pumps, air compressors, and other high power outlets. So for the best prices on all Zeus products, head over to thesmartesthouse.com. That's thesmartesthouse.com.
Miranda, what's next in your smart home? Like, where do you want to go with this? Or is it just kind of a project that just kind of, as you get stuff, you're like, hey, this is a cool idea, and then
I think one of the really big things that I'd like is smart blinds. So it's such a big quality of life change, I think, when you have like a full set of really beautiful smart blinds. Like obviously motion blinds are in the works with Program, and Eve motion blinds are as well. Um, yeah, but we've got like a lot of glass in our house. So trying to figure out exactly like which type of blinds to do and like what measurements and everything. And yeah, trying and then I also like we have like normal vertical blinds like these ones here, but um those aren't great to try and
I was going to say, are you thinking of retrofitting or going new? Like, what would you?
I have tried a couple of things. So I have one of the Akara blind controllers, but it works with vertical blinds, but it opens the slats only. It doesn't actually pull the whole thing across. So I'd really like a full set of beautiful roller blinds that just fully come up and you can kind of do everything with rather than just like one small section of it. That would be really cool. But it's a big project, right? So yeah, and we've got some blind tilts as well. So I have the SwitchBot blind tilt in our kitchen. Um, but again, that's with like slatted vertical, horizontal blinds. So yeah, I'd really love big proper roller blinds like that. And then I've also been thinking about like stuff for the garden. We have a couple of small things in the garden. Um, Usually, if I'm not working, I'm in the garden doing something, playing around. So we have like an irrigation thing, which is great from Sonoff. So that's just for a sprinkler. But like I'd love a robot lawnmower or something like that.
Oh,
To
join the
but
club. Yeah.
again,
same.
it's like the weather here is so poor that like you think, "Oh, how often is it actually going to be used, and is it a bit of a waste?" But like the robot mop that we have is brilliant. That's a big quality of life difference.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. That's brilliant. Yeah. And then I think some lights. So I bought a load of light bulbs, but I haven't actually installed them yet. So I want to automate my lights in here, make sure that they're kind of, I don't know, hooked up to like my general workday, and I don't know, doing subtle changes if I need. Yeah, small things like that really.
You mentioned there light bulbs.
Mm.
No light switch that you would automate. You would prefer to automate the bulb over the switch.
Um, yes and no. So I would like to. I don't think it's like wiring a switch in myself. I probably wouldn't trust myself to do that well. And I'm pretty sure my husband wouldn't be happy with me just being like, hey, I'm going to switch off the electricity and I'm going to play around with this for a while. So maybe we need a contractor or something to come and do that. But yeah, I don't really know. Maybe a switch at some point, but I don't really know what the electrics are like in our home. Yeah, because we haven't touched it since we moved in, so don't know if I really want to mess with that too much.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a great PSA moment for if you don't know what you're doing on electrical, definitely don't touch it and hire a
Yeah,
professional.
exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like some stuff, again, just going back to the program, like we have some switches in for testing. Some of them have not been certified because they don't have overheat or overload protection. So at least I know, stuff like that to avoid. Yeah, so it's kind of a bit of a mixed bag on switches. Maybe I would try some, but mostly we just rely on like remote switches instead, and remote buttons and things like that. And I've spent some time with my sister and her husband recently because he has some mobility issues at the moment. So like we looked at like having a switch that he can just have in his pocket, right, and turn off different things from, and stuff like that is really helpful, and very easy entry level things to try and get into, right? So yeah, so that's nice. And she just got a Roborock robot mop as well on my recommendation, and I'm absolutely really jealous of it now because I think it's better than mine, and it was way cheaper than mine too. So I'm like,
Don't you hate that? Like when you're like, oh,
yeah,
the new models come out. Oh, look how cheap it is. Why did I spend all like? Why could I just
I
not wait
know.
6 months and get the newer model?
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, I bought my robot mop like I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and it
Yeah.
must have been about £1,000. I think it was before I joined the foundation, and at the time I was like, "This is amazing! Oh, it's brilliant! It's so worth the money." And now I'm like, "Oh, they're like the equivalent now is about £300." I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
can't justify getting another one because it's just what would I do with two?
Well, it's funny because I'm in that same boat where I'm like, I really want a new robot vacuum and mop, and I was like, and I my existing one is perfectly fine. There's no reason I need one, right? But it's just so much cooler. I get it.
Yeah, and the other thing that I haven't really tried much of is Z-Wave. It's not Z-Wave isn't necessarily super popular in the UK. There's not a huge amount of device manufacturers who will make like Z-Wave plugs or anything here. I think Shelly has one, but that's fairly new. So I'd like to do more with Z-Wave actually, because we have a house that's kind of long and thin, and then there's a couple of stone walls, like the one behind me. And this is a real stone wall because
Yeah.
my office is like an extension of our house. So I think some of the Z-Wave stuff would be really, really cool here. And I need to speak to Agnes actually because I got some door open close sensors from Zeus, but I need the waterproof casing because I want it for my gate and things like that. So
Yeah.
I might try and hit her up and see if she can get one shipped to me. So yeah.
Yeah,
That's
or
awesome.
you can probably get them 3D printed. Like I've seen, even for the Acquire sensors, like there's
Interesting.
3D print files that you can
Yeah.
download to make them waterproof.
That's a good call actually. I'd never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been wanting to do that on my fence, like in my gate to go to the backyard, right? And but I've got the sensors, I've got everything. I just haven't 3D printed it because
I was gonna say you've even got a 3D printer. Like what?
I've
It
got a
takes
3D
so
printer.
long
I
though,
just
doesn't it?
No, it's not. Honestly, it's not even that. I just keep forgetting about it. like right now, I just remembered because you mentioned it. I'm like, crap, I need to do that.
Yeah.
And it's because we have a big problem where I'm at because our ground shifts, right? So what ends up happening is sometimes my door just ends up getting left open for all of winter, right? Because my latch is crap, and if there's a ton of wind, whatever, that blows it out. Right now, I'm in a good position because my latch is more often closed, like stuck in a closed position than an open one, so it's okay. But at some point, I'm going to need a whole new fence, and I just don't want to spend like, I don't know, like 12, 15, 20 grand, whatever it costs to do that. And
It's
yeah,
so interesting that you say that though, because like I'd never thought about something like ground shifts, right? But like when you speak to people from different regions, you find all of these different use cases that you'd never thought of before. And like something that I really want to do with the program next year is make sure that like every region has a really good option that's in the program of a certified device and say, right, okay, all of the basics like smart plugs, smart bulbs, smart switches. I want a really good representation in every single region that you have an option for. Because, like, currently, if you're in, say, I don't know, Japan or like Latin America or something, you might not be able to find like a smart plug that's certified with us right now. So, like, trying to go back to the basics and make sure every region has a really good option for those things is helpful. It's easier with battery devices, right? Because they'll basically work anywhere. But like plugs and things that are wired, you've got to make sure that you're getting good regional coverage.
that's a good point. I never thought of it. I never thought of that too. I know Phil a lot of times has issues with Z-Wave and stuff like that, and it sounds like you do a little bit too, Miranda. But I guess we're spoiled just being in a part of the world here where you get everything, right? What would be kind of cool is actually like almost like a map, right? Where you can go and filter down and be like, hey, I live in, you use Japan as an example. I live in Japan. What's available to me that is certified that I want to use as a in my home?
Yeah, and we've kind of made steps towards that to an extent, like not a map, but I love that idea. That's a really cool idea, actually. But we put a certified device list live last week. So basically, you can go onto the Works with website now, and you've got a full list of all of the certified devices, and then you've got filters that work by region or by device type or by protocol type. So if you know that you're in the UK or there's something that's worldwide, you should be able to find like all of the UK based items or like all of the UK plugs, right? Because plugs are unusual here. Yeah, and then be able to kind of see based on those things. So I'm really happy actually that that's gone live, because before it was actually quite clunky to try and go and find the list of devices. You'd have to go onto either our launch vlog or like the actual integration page, and then you'd see the list. So this is kind of a good central way for be like, hey, here are all the devices. Here's everything that we have definitely certified. And that also then helps because unfortunately, sometimes you do get people misusing a badge. Maybe they're
And that
not
was going
part
to
of
be
the
one of my
program.
questions. Yeah, like,
Mm,
have you had
yeah.
any brands or anyone out there using a Works with Home Assistant badge and had
Yes.
to like send them a letter, or how do you deal
Yes.
with?
We have a little joke internally, right? Because we were in Dublin in the summer doing a big summit, and that was one of the questions from one of the other team members is like, well, how do you deal with that? And I kind of joked, and I spoke into the microphone. I said, did they get a scary phone call from me? And like, that's it's not a scary phone call, but yeah, I have to reach out quite often to brands who are using the badge, but maybe they don't know that it's a proper certification program and they've just seen it somewhere and thought, hey, we're going to use it. So those conversations are good to have, because you can say, hey, look, if your devices do work with Home Assistant, we'd love to have you in the program formally, but until then, can you please remove the badge? We want to test the items first. We want to make sure that the user experience is great before that's launched properly, and go from there. And then sometimes you get people like using a kind of creepy AI version of the Home Assistant logo or something, and it's like, no, that's again not appropriate,
Yeah.
because it's kind of misleading the community, right? Like that's the main thing, is we want to make sure that the community have a really clear idea of like what we have certified and what we haven't, and that information is fully available for them.
And are there people that still, after that phone call, that are still like, no, I'm not going to stop doing that, and it's like,
Sometimes it takes a little longer than I would like for them to remove the badge,
sure,
let's say.
sure, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So there's some negotiation there behind the scenes of like,
Yeah.
I've never had to get lawyers involved yet.
Yeah.
Which is nice. But that's not outside of the realms of possibility, because,
Sure.
if someone's deliberately ignoring our requests and deliberately misleading people, it's a legal issue, unfortunately.
Well,
But most,
there's also that matter of, you don't know what they're doing with whatever information. You don't know,
yeah,
like if it's just some random person that's just, that state sponsored something potentially. It could be there's a lot of stuff that where
I mean,
it
it
can
could
be
be anything,
malicious
right?
too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, it could be anything, and yeah, and it's important that people aren't misled by seeing our brand somewhere. And yeah, and that's why we want to make sure that like on our side we can be just as transparent as possible with what's certified and it's easy to access. Yeah, but yeah, that's probably the less fun side of my job, is having to reach out to people like that and kind of badger them to make changes. But the overwhelming majority, it's a genuine mistake, or it's their marketing agency has found it and thought, oh, we'll do this or something like that. So that's nice, because you can usually turn that piece around and say, hey, if you want a relationship with us, like, cool, let me know. We can do that. We can build that, and I can look at your products and everything else. So yeah.
Yeah. So for those makers out there, don't just slap it on there being like, hey, maybe that'll instantiate a phone call from Miranda to me, but maybe just reach out proactively. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. And like again, it's kind of a joke, right? Because like in person, I'm a very petite little woman. I'm not a scary lady. Like I'm not that intimidating, let's say. So like when we have those chats internally, it's kind of like an ongoing running joke now that like I must be so terrifying. But yeah, it's the best thing to do is just reach out to us first before you put any marketing together that's referencing Home Assistant. Just come and check it by us first, because we want to see it too, right? If you've got a cool project that is about Home Assistant, amazing. We want to see that. We want to see it on our community pages and everything else, as long as it's not misleading. Cool. Like, and we can share it too, right?
Exactly.
So
You can
yeah.
book it. Like you can, tell more people about it.
Yeah, for sure.
What are your like thoughts for where you want the Works with Home Assistant program to go in the future? Like, do you have any ideas on like how you could expand it, or what else it could touch in the smart home?
Yeah. So there's a few things that we've had a lot of firsts this year. So we've had like the first cameras join the program, the first I don't know, specific kind of sensors, or I don't know, smoke alarms and things like that. So it's really important to get all of the basics there. Yeah, so as much as possible, I want really good regional coverage of like every basic device that you would have maybe as a start out to a smart home. If you've just set up Home Assistant, hopefully the Works with program would give you a really good way to be like, okay, I know these devices shouldn't be difficult to integrate. They should just work out of the box. And yeah, that's a really good start point. Before then, maybe you build up to being more of a power user. So regional coverage is really, really important, and basic device types. And then again, I'd really like to add some more unusual stuff in. So things like, I don't know, pool vacuums or
Kitty
lawnmower
litter trays, or
vacuums and stuff like that. Stuff that's kind of more interesting, or more unusual, more like new to market. That would be super cool. I'd love some really fun lighting too, just because I think it's so visual, and I think a lot of people enter the smart home market like that. And it's a way to involve your whole home, your whole family, because I think a lot of people buy like cool lighting for their kids or for their kids' rooms, and like that's really nice to be able to build out the program with more fun stuff, right? So like we had one that's just been certified from Apollo as their new Christmas decoration. So it's the first Christmas decoration that's been certified within the program. I think it's just cute. So yeah, stuff like that is always nice, but it's a balance, right, of getting all of those basics and then rounding it out with other things. But the other thing that I didn't necessarily expect, but when we speak to manufacturers, we get a little bit of an early glimpse into what they're bringing to market. So I can go to the product team and say, hey, this thing is happening in the market and it's happening in 6 to 12 months' time. Are we going to be able to support that piece? Do we have a way to actually do this function yet? Or where is it on our roadmap? Do we need to adjust it? Because we know that if partners are coming out with it, the rest of the market will follow, and then we know that there'll be a community need for it. It's not to appease partners. It's more to be like trying to think ahead of what's the community going to want in 12 months' time.
That's interesting because, really, like Home Assistant has always been reactionary, right? Like a device comes out or someone is using, from this manufacturer, okay, I'm going to build this integration to work with that device. But now, before the device has landed, we can actually get Home Assistant in a position to be ready to support that type of device, or, the group of stuff coming in to the market in preparation for it. That's actually a really good use case.
Yeah, for sure. And again, sometimes it's not just the Works with program, right? It's sometimes manufacturers will reach out to us and they say, hey, we know that there's an integration that we have with you guys. We have a new product that's coming out. Maybe it's all under NDA right now, or I don't know, there's something happening. We want to be able to talk to you about it. How do we start facilitating that conversation? And then that's one of my roles, is to make sure that, I don't know, if an NDA needs to be signed, it's not going to hem us into any issues, but also that we get first eyes on it and think, actually, okay, how can we start, do we need to involve one of the community maintainers with it if they, if the integration is actively maintained by a contributor, or to involve our own team too. So yeah, that's a really cool thing that, again, I wasn't expecting out of this role necessarily.
That's cool. So it sounds like if there's a community, like let's say I own the integration for, I don't know, the next Nuki lock as an example, right? And Nuki's coming in and saying, hey, you know, Miranda, we've got this cool new functionality coming out. So then as a community member, you'd come reach out to me and be like, hey, sign this NDA. And then Nuki's got this thing coming. And, you know, how are you going to, is it something like that?
Ish. So with Nuki, because they're a works with partner, any integrations
kind of handle the
should be maintained by them. Nuki works via Matter, so that's kind of by the by.
It's
But
true,
if it was someone else, then NDAs we don't like to push our maintainers into having to sign legal agreements. That's not our bag. So wherever possible, we'll take that burden on. And if there needs to be an NDA signed, it's done by our team.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of, it's harder to manage in that way. I don't think we've ever had the need for that from a community standpoint, but we have had community maintainers who have also come the other way and said, hey, the manufacturer I maintain the integration for have reached out to me and they have some kind of change that they're making. Can help me? So we absolutely get involved then, and we try and make sure that those conversations are really fruitful and positive. Yeah, so that's really cool. It's, again, very gratifying when a manufacturer will actively engage with the community and understand how important it is, right?
Yeah, that is very neat.
Are there any brands that you've seen working with Home Assistant, either within the program of the Works with program or out of the program, that you've been surprised by? Like, for example, for me, I was surprised to see this year LG working on their own integration into Home Assistant. I've been using a custom component created by a community member, and now it looks like LG themselves are creating integration into Home Assistant for their LG ThinQ devices. Are there any brands that you like see in the list and go, oh, I'm actually surprised they're doing that themselves?
We've definitely had some kind of interesting use cases where people are using it internally themselves first. So like motion blinds is a really interesting one. Jerry at Motion Blinds is super into the community. He's very well integrated there, very engaged. And we went to visit them back in April, and they showed us around the factory, and they use Home Assistant to test their blinds. And it's not to test them to see how they work with Home Assistant, although they do that too. It's actually to test how many uses the blinds have in real life, because their QA, like their quality assessment, is testing like how many times a blind can go up and down in a life cycle without breaking or without the material fraying or something like that. So they're using it in a really interesting way like that. That's been super cool. Yeah. And then some big brands have also said like, oh, hey, we have our own like internal Slack channel about you guys. And it's just about us using Home Assistant at home and talking about the different things that we do in our own homes. And that, again, that's really cool. It's super gratifying to work at a project where people just engage so passionately with it. I've never worked in a place where people just have such engagement with the product, and yeah, they just love it. It's not a product, is it? It's a project, right? That's the whole point of it. It's open source, and yeah, it's so gratifying for sure.
How do you find working for the Open Hand Foundation? Like, I'm guessing we had Darren on back in December. So I'm guessing similar to you, similar to Darren, you'd be all working remote. You have like a Slack channel, you're all like on regular video conferences. How's like day-to-day life for the Open Home Foundation?
Yeah, it's very strange in the best way, I think is the way I would describe it. Because again, it's very unusual to work somewhere where people just love the way it works so much. That's just so cool. Most of us come from like, I don't know, I guess a traditional corporate background where you're maybe building something that you don't love all of that much, and it's just a job. But here it's not really just a job for anyone. We hire a lot from our own community, so everyone who works here is so talented and so knowledgeable, and it's really nice to be able to just go out to someone and say like, hey, I have this problem with something, and someone will always step in and be like, oh, hey, I've done X, Y, and Z before or whatever. And I think sometimes in certain corporate roles or whatever, if you reached out for help, then people would be like, are you struggling? Or, that's we
Right.
hired you to do
Like
X.
judgment.
You shouldn't
There's a bit
need
of
any
Yeah.
help. Yeah, especially I don't know if it's a UK thing, but like the stiff upper lip kind of British business vibe is you should just get on with it and just keep your head down and just keep going.
right.
And if you're asking for help, it's kind of a sign of weakness. But there's constant discussion in our Slack channels about everything really, and going back and forth. And we very much build in the open internally too. So if something's going on, if I'm writing a blog for something, it's very visible to like everyone. So if someone has some feedback about how it's written, or I don't know, how we've discussed one product or something like that, someone will come back and be like, this thing is probably wrong actually. And it's nice because the feedback is always helpful,
Yeah.
and always productive. It's never personal. It's never like you did this thing wrong. It's just it's a very, very positive space. So yeah, my day to day is there's a lot on Slack. I have regular calls with certain areas of the foundation. So like I'm part of the marketing team, but because my work touches kind of other areas, I have regular calls with like protocols, for example, because most of the devices coming in are like Matter, Zigbee, Z-Wave. So I have regular touch points with the testers. And then with product as well, again, because of that roadmap piece. And then the other thing is we have a whole working group for the Works with Home Assistant program. Again, people don't necessarily realize this, but the documentation is published on the foundation website as to how we run the working group and how it works. But we actually like vote on all of the people who come into the program. So if I have a new manufacturer who wants to sign a contract with us, goes to vote first. So like there are certain members of the working group and we all have to vote yay or nay to whether that person should be able to even go into testing for the devices. So if they maybe have like a bad reputation within the community that I don't know about yet or something like that, it always gets picked up really early. Or if there's a small issue with like maybe they've got 3 integrations where they should really just have one and that needs to be fixed first, then those things can be addressed as well. So the whole like building in the open thing is really positive. I found it super helpful for sure.
That's very cool. I actually didn't realize that whole like voting process, and even before you get started for that, that's really neat. That's cool. And if you had any advice for you know any builder that's tinkerer kind of thing, and they're like, hey, I have this thing and I think it could be something that everybody loves, what's your advice to somebody like that?
I mean, for sure, just reach out like straight away. All of our contact details for the Works With stuff is on the Works With website, and that's a direct line to me basically. And I can tell you, the guidance for exactly what's needed to get ready for the program, and kind of walk you through the steps of it. And also, it's not if something's local, it should be straightforward, right? And it's especially if it's been built with Home Assistant in mind, it should be straightforward to do that. At the moment, we're trying to figure out a good way to launch brands who only have one product. So, like predominantly, we've had people joining who have, a large product line, or at least kind of 5 to 6 devices. So sometimes we get startup brands and they just have one device, and it's like, cool. That takes a lot of resource on our end to do the whole contract, do the testing just for one device, and then a whole blog for one device. There's not maybe as much to say in something like that. So what we're looking at now is being able to launch like 3 brands in one go. Maybe they have non-competing products, or maybe like here's a bunch of products that have been started on Kickstarter and they're now live for people to buy. Go and find some cool stuff, right? And do it in that way. So yeah, sometimes it's not a quick process, and that's one thing I would say is have some patience with it, because we still have at any given time we have at least 10 partners in testing.
Oh wow, 10. That's like at least, so you got at least three devices each. So we've got 30 odd devices that you're testing
At least,
one time.
at very least,
Wow.
yeah. So sometimes I can get things through testing more quickly because maybe we've had someone in for testing and actually all of those devices fail, and we know that it's going to take them another 3 months to get them testable again because we've given the manufacturer feedback. So maybe I can pull one forward, and then that's my next launch. But yeah, at any given time we have. I mean, I've got a list of hundreds of devices that are ready to test right now, which is cool. It's really cool, but it's hard then because you're like, okay, this manufacturer has been waiting X amount of months to finish testing, and that's kind of hard to manage. But again, we've made loads of testing improvements, so we're using more people now, and we have a specific testing process that everyone follows. We're actually going to be publishing that soon too. Because the community has often asked, like, well, how do you guys actually test? What do you test for? So we're doing like a sample testing process just for a smart plug right now. So it's got like all of the specifics of what exactly we test the plugs against and what are the parameters that we look for and stuff like that. So that'll be published pretty soon. And yeah, it's nice to be able to be that visible with people because again, if someone comes back and says, hey, this thing is missing and we haven't thought of it yet, we'll be like, oh, okay, that needs to go in the testing protocol, right? So and that's really cool. That's really exciting.
I'd love to know is from a testing process perspective, it's so you mentioned there is this list does exist that eventually you'll publish whatever. What do they have to score? Like, does it have to be 100%? Does it is it like a 80 or a 90 or like a?
No, so there's certain things that are required and certain things that are nice to have. So if there is something that's required, it's essential. So if they don't fit that piece, the whole thing is
right
fails. So we have a fail, but it will pass if improvements are made, and here are the improvements. And then a pass, but we suggest some improvements. So there's some nice to have stuff, but things that wouldn't block certification. And then just a pass, and it's like, yeah, this is top tier.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But again, this is kind of always in flow, right? It's always changing because sometimes you get a new device and it does something that we've never tested before, and we're like, okay, how do we test this? And trying to figure those things out, and also figure out like what's essential on a multifunctional device and what's not essential. And we heavily rely on community feedback for that. We're going to do some more research into that this year as well, because if you have a sensor it's marketed as a temperature and humidity sensor, but it also can sense light, for example.
Yep. Right.
Should it have all three exposed to Home Assistant, or would it be enough just to have temperature and humidity? Like in an ideal world, I always think it should have all of them. But if maybe the matter spec doesn't cover light yet, then it's like, well, it's not really the manufacturer's fault. So it's trying to toss up like what's a key function and what's just
grey areas here, isn't there? Open to interpretation, as Rohan always says.
For sure. But again, we're trying to be super clear with that now with the device list that we have. If there's some function like missing or like not quite where it should be, we state that really clearly. So I don't know, like lock calibration is a really common one. So you can't calibrate a lock without an app usually, but that's a one-time thing. So if you get like a Nuki lock, for example, Nuki are great because yes, you have to have the app to calibrate it, but you calibrate it once and then that should be it forever. And they don't require you to set up an account or like give your details over to them in order to do that calibration. And then you can just delete the app. So that's why we accept Nuki into the program, even though they have that small app piece. But because it's like you're not giving them any data, it's a one-time thing. And there's absolutely no way we could accept a smart lock otherwise because the matter spec doesn't cover calibration yet, So it's trying to toss that up as to, do you want no locks in the in the certification list at all? Or do you want some that have some small caveats that you know ahead of time?
Yeah. And what was cool is we had Jürgen on the podcast a while ago from Nuki, right? And he was actually very forthcoming with that. He's like, listen, this is why, right? Like, we have to have this thing. There's no way outside of that for calibration, to your point, right? And which is why I like vendors like that are just like, hey, this is where we want to get to, but we can't, right? And they're just transparent about it, right? And because sometimes otherwise we make our own assumptions of like, oh, you're just trying to get me into your thing. It's like, no, I legit can't because the spec doesn't exist, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's also about us being in the right rooms too, right? So the other thing that we do, I guess more behind the scenes, is we go to places like the CSA meetings. So the CSA, they're the Connectivity Standards Alliance, and they're the people who run the Matter spec and the Zigbee spec. So we're in those rooms, and we have a voice in those rooms to be like, hey, we want lock calibration. It's important to everyone in the market. And, we're able to push our viewpoint there and say, this is the thing that we want to work on. And we can contribute as well to those projects too.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about the foundation is you can kind of take the community's voice up to the I don't know, the powers that be, I guess, right? That make the decisions on these things, whether it's a Z-Web Alliance, CSA, or anything like that. Because, I mean, your community base is large enough that, you can throw your weight around a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have such a line into the user base because our users are vocal, but they really know what they're talking about. They're exacting, they're very detail orientated a lot of the time. So if there's an issue that's being raised, it's a really important thing to listen to. It's not just complaining for the sake of complaining. It's like, hey, I want to help this thing. I want this thing to be available. Like, how do we do that? And that's so positive and so helpful. Yeah. And like we see it at the community meetups too. Like, so we did one in San Diego a little while ago, and I spoke to a community member there, and I said, tell me about your smart home. And they were a frequent Zeus user. And I said, oh, how's it going? And they said, well, everything's, great, but I have this one issue with blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I'm seeing Agnes tomorrow. Tell me what the issue is. And like, I wrote it down on my phone. I still have a note on my phone. And when I saw Agnes, I was like, can you tell me why this thing happens? And she was like, not sure. Like, I'll take that down too. And I'll see what the tech team say and everything else. So having those channels of communication is just, it's really cool.
Yeah. And what's cool is a lot of these folks are also involved with the community, right? To say, hey, like they want that feedback. They legit want to make the product better. And same thing. We had Agnes on the podcast forever ago, and same. And it was very like you still get that, even though Zeus is a company that's been around quite a while, right? And they are probably one of the larger players in the smart products. But they still care about what the community has to say or what they want and things like that. And Apollo, same thing, right? Where they literally build products because the community wants X, and they're like, okay, I'll build X, right? It's
but like when you think about it, why would you do it in a different way, right? If you build something that you don't know that there's a need for, why would you bother? Why would you put so much work and effort into making something brand new that's not going to sell either? So it's smart from both standpoints too. But again, like in the actual works with agreement, there's a clause in there which says you have to be a good actor within the community. So it's like that's kind of an interesting phrase, and it basically means like you have to engage with the community, you have to do it in a positive way, you have to take feedback as it's meant, i.e. constructively.
You have to be a good community player, right? Like you can't
for
just,
sure. And then you also can't just turn something off, right? You can't just be like, oh, hey, actually this thing won't work over Matter anymore, or this thing, is going to have a cloud subscription behind it, because then you'd get taken out of the program instantly, for sure. So
that is actually a very good clause to have, because time and time again we see clouds shutting down or rugs being pulled around people's smart home devices.
I'm curious. You don't have to name names, but have you had to pull the badge from anybody?
We will be removing one vendor from the program. It's not because of any issues with devices, particularly, but it's because they haven't re-signed their contract. Yeah, so I haven't been able to. I spoke with them a little while ago, but I haven't been able to make contact since, unfortunately. So yeah, it's actually nothing to do with them being like a bad actor, or there's no device type issues, but because they're not covered by that legal contract, I can't have them in the program going forward. If they want to change their mind and sign the contract and re-engage, I'm totally open to that. But yeah, unfortunately, we'll have to remove them from the program pretty soon. So I'm just actually writing up the announcement for that at the moment. It's a shame because the devices are fine, but if I've got no point of contact there, and if they're not answering my phone calls or are answering my emails, then there's no relationship there to build. And that's the whole point of partnerships, is it's a relationship. It's a back and forth, right? So they shouldn't be.
So I wonder, in a case like that, then what's the, like, how do you communicate that with the users, right? That's because you see the blog post for something that came on.
Yeah.
Is there one for
we
somebody
have to
that
do it
comes
publicly
off?
for sure. We have to be transparent about it, because it's misleading to the community if we weren't transparent about it. So there'll be an announcement, and then on their original blog post where it said that they were joining, we'll put a banner on that saying this is no longer the case. And it'll be super clear to users that that's happened. But it is what it is, you know. And they're not, because they're not engaging with us. I can't, if, like, again, they're not fulfilling the terms of the contract, even if they had signed it, because if a bug is being raised and I need someone on the technical team to act on that, I would have nowhere to go with it. So yeah.
And then it just looks bad for Home Assistant as well, because then you've got something that says works with Home Assistant on the tin, and you have no point of contact. You're just
Yeah, exactly.
And it again, doesn't work with Home Assistant at some point.
Well, you don't, or I don't know if it works with Home Assistant anymore. They could have new products that are coming out, but again, we haven't received any for testing, blah, blah, blah. So yeah. And again, one of the terms is that we have a support contact there and we have a technical contact. So I always have someone to go to and say, hey, this thing has popped up on our community. Can we jump on a call and get it fixed? Or do you know how we would fix it? Let's write a quirk for it or whatever. So yeah. But that's overwhelmingly, people have been super responsive, and we're having really good relationships with manufacturers now, which is great.
Yeah, which I would assume would be the case, right? Like this sounds like a one-off, and it seems like it's kind of, I don't know, like if I was the manufacturer, it wouldn't be in my best interest, because the way I look at it is it's almost free marketing, right? And of having the endorsement behind, not endorsement.
Yeah, but in the works with program, again, because we've managed those relationships from the start, we've set really good expectations as to, if you're joining, this is what's expected of you. Sometimes, again, we have manufacturers who reach out because there's a community built cloud integration, for example, and maybe it's really, really hammering their servers, and they reach out and they're like, hey, we're going to shut this down. And it's like, okay, well, we don't want that to happen. The community doesn't want that to happen. So again, it's my job to jump on a call with them and say, how can we compromise here? Like, do you need it to do something different? Do I need to reach out to the maintainer and say, can we adjust something? Or it's up to me to, or it's up to me to kind of go to the manufacturer and say, hey, actually, I think if you did it this way instead, or if you guys take it over and maintain it yourselves, maybe you could join the program, you'd have full control over it. Or, let's engage first, rather than just like, hey, we're going to shut this thing down. Because they won't benefit from shutting something down. They might have slightly less traffic on their cloud servers, but they'll get a lot of angry people in their forums, So it's a case of them understanding our position and who we are and how we are run. And then, that's kind of my job to say, look, we're acting on behalf of our community, and we know that this is what they want.
Finally, we are very much over time today. Miranda, what is your goals for 2026? If you could, one point, what would you be? We're looking back in January 27. What do you hope to have accomplished this year for the Works With program?
Oh, that's a great question. I'd love full worldwide coverage for like a couple of key devices. So smart plugs, bulbs, switches in as many protocols as possible. So I want, one for Zigbee, one for Matter, one for Z-Wave, at least, in every region. That would be great. Personally, I would love to walk to my local B&Q, which is a hardware store here in the UK, and see my badge on a shelf. My badge. It's not my badge. It's our badge. But see the badge on the shelf. Like, that would just be amazing. Like I would love
to see it in those little stickers, or those pop-out stickers that advertise something, like to get your attention on a shelf. Like I'd love to see a little home assistant like talk and like say, "Hey, I'm home assistant right here," right?
Love it. Yeah. So I'd love that. And then a couple of kind of interesting new weird and wonderful products, right? So something innovative, something kind of wacky joining the program. We've launched 12 partners this year, so basically one a month. I'd love to increase that. I think there's a couple of good goals there.
Yeah, they're great goals. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. If anyone has any questions, where can they reach out to you? I'm guessing you're in the Discord, hanging out on the forums.
Yeah, I am in Discord. I'm not great at the forums. Like I check every launch blog pretty regularly. So I'm there. But we have a partner at openhomefoundation.org email. So you can just email me there. All of the details are on the Works With specific website. And and I do lurk in places too. So I lurk on Reddit a lot, just checking out what people are saying about certain devices, either looking for new partners to join or good recommendations from the community, or what to be avoiding too. If there's something that constantly has issues, then I take that into consideration. Absolutely. So I'm always looking around. But yeah, I am on Discord. You can usually find me there.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
See you soon.
Cheers.